Okay, so welcome to my supplement presentation on Tart Cherry. I was introduced to this as an endurance runner. Some people in my circles have taken it and sworn by it as a way to enhance recovery between hard workouts, so I figured I would dive into it and see what it's all about. So, there are many claims that they make about tart cherry juice. This is a graphic from Cherubundi, which is one of the more well-known tart cherry juice manufacturers. This is the one that I had actually heard about before choosing this topic. And you can see here that it shows some of its potential benefits, most notably a reduction in inflammation and pain, an improvement in sleep, and an increase in antioxidant activity, which leads to a lot of those other factors, as well as a boost in immunity. Now, this is sold as part of a 12 pack, and each of these works out to about $3.67 per serving. So a little on the expensive side for a supplement, especially if you haven't used it before. Now, the ISSN actually put out a case study just this year, or a position stand, I should say, on tart cherry in general, and it recommends supplementing with 480 milligrams of supplement powder or 60 to 90 milliliters. That works out to 2 to 3 ounces of concentrated juice. And we can see here that this is well within that range. So, now, in terms of availability and cost, it turns out that you can go online and buy some relatively expensive supplements, but tart cherry juice is actually commonly available at supermarkets. I decided to look for some options that I could go get today that are very close to me. It turns out my local supermarket here in New Hampshire has a 32-ounce bottle that you can see there on the left, and it sells for $5.49. That works out to about $1.37 per 8-ounce serving, which provides the recommended amount. The one deterrent here is that it does contain 140 calories and 35 grams of sugar, so someone looking to lose weight, looking to operate in a calorie deficit, this may not be a great option for them. So a far more cost-effective and calorically empty option, really, is a tart cherry extract supplement that I found for sale at my local Walmart. And that sells for about $7.88 for 90 capsules. That works out to a little under 9 cents per recommended dose. They recommend that you take one a day. So for 3 months, you've got all the tart cherry extract that you would need to get all of the purported benefits. Now, there are lots of other options that exist online and on social media. Since I started researching this, I've actually gotten a lot of those advertised to me on my social media algorithm, and you can find them in concentrated and dilute juice. You can find them in powder form. You can find them as pills and even as gummies. So, the claims really do make sense based on the composition of tart cherries in general. Many fruits and vegetables are high in polyphenols, and they have potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Tart cherries are particularly high in these phytochemicals, so they can reduce oxidative stress, they can reduce the potential for damage from free radicals, this can reduce inflammation and enhance recovery. In addition, cherries in general, are actually a really great source of all the antioxidant vitamins A, C, and E, and that certainly enhances this effect. So in terms of pain relief, the same factors that help to reduce inflammation help to reduce pain. And so there's a lot of overlap there in terms of the antioxidant capacity of a lot of those chemicals. And there's an added benefit for people who suffer from gout, which is a condition marked by elevated uric acid in the blood. And tart cherry supplementation can actually help to reduce uric acid concentration, which can, in theory, reduce pain from gout. There are other more effective and well-researched treatments that exist, but it is an option to reduce uric acid, and studies have shown that that works pretty well. So, in terms of sleep enhancement, tart cherry actually does contain a small natural amount of melatonin. The recommended dose typically gives you about 85 micrograms of melatonin per day. That's well below the dose of zero point 0.5 to 5 milligrams that's typically associated with helping to manage disturbed sleep. But even studies that didn't show an increase in melatonin, I found two very solid studies that showed benefits in sleep. One of them showed a pretty significant increase in melatonin, one of them didn't. But both showed increases in improved sleep and sleep quality among athletes. And finally, the increased antioxidant activity is pretty obvious. It's got a lot of phytochemicals and antioxidant vitamins that can help to reduce damage from free radicals. And there have been several studies that have been a little inconclusive or less convincing about increases in antioxidant content, but there have been quite a few studies that show that total antioxidant status, abbreviated TAS, has increased with regular supplementation. So, in terms of immune function, there's very little research out there that I could find on any immune benefit that's derived from tart cherry supplementation, at least not directly. But given that inflammation is an important component of that immune response, those antioxidants and phytochemicals can have a role in boosting immunity in general. So, there is a plausible immune function, but I don't think enough research exists to really say that for sure. So, the research, there's actually quite a bit of research on inflammation with tart cherry supplementation. And so, Howitson, his group found that tart cherry juice supplementation that started 5 days before the London Marathon reduced a lot of inflammatory markers. They looked at really all of them, found marked decreases in creatine kinase, C-reactive protein, IL-6 protein carbonyls, all markers of inflammation. They also saw reduced delayed onset muscle soreness overall and increased muscle performance, a return to normal muscle strength 24 to 48 hours post race. That suggests that it played a pretty significant role in speeding up recovery. There was another group led by Hooper that showed similar decreases in inflammatory markers in power athletes, athletes that were trying to perform barbell back squats at 80% of their one rep maximum. And they actually saw an additional finding that creatine kinase myocardial band was reduced as well. This is a particular enzyme that's a measure of cardiac muscle damage. And so any damage that may occur to the heart as a result of that exercise is also mitigated by tart cherry supplementation, which I found to be very interesting. So there's another group led by Hillman that didn't see the same sort of decrease in inflammatory markers or the same increase in oxidative capacity with either juice or powder supplementation. They gave both to various experimental groups in their study, but they did see a reduction in uric acid levels, again suggesting that someone suffering from gout, someone whose blood pH is too high, may benefit from supplementation with tart cherry juice. And then there was a group led by Levers that found that tart cherry supplementation 10 days before a half marathon showed reductions in a lot of catabolic markers, creatinine and urea, as well as a reduction in cortisol. That suggests a general decrease in oxidative stress and additional muscle repair that occurred, or a lack of muscle breakdown that occurred prior to their race. Sure enough, even after the race, the 48 hours following, they showed a consistent increase in antioxidant activity, showing that the oxidative stress, the oxidative damage, had already begun to be acted upon by the extra antioxidants they may have gained, and that tart cherry group showed a 13% faster performance in the race on average, suggesting that supplementation even before an event can have a benefit. So, Howitson, this is a particular research interest of his apparently, found that supplementation with tart cherry juice led to rises in melatonin. So now we're shifting to sleep benefits potentially. So the dose provided, like I said, 85 micrograms per dose, was significantly below what we might consider therapeutic levels, but there was an increase in melatonin, and there were improvements in sleep quality, both anecdotally and by measurements over a placebo. And Chung did a similar study with field hockey athletes in South Korea and found that there were similar improvements in sleep quality, although his group did not find an increase in melatonin or a decrease in cortisol. He gave his supplementation on the day of a yo-yo intermittent recovery test, the sort of infamous fitness test given to a lot of sports teams all over the world, and for 2 days thereafter. And he did find that they did sleep better in the 2 days that followed. So, on to our recommendation. Clearly, the antioxidants and the phytochemicals in tart cherry juice have potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant capabilities. That gives it lots of potential to reduce inflammation, to reduce delayed onset muscle soreness, and to reduce the amount of recovery that we need between workouts. That seems to apply to both endurance and power athletes based on the research. Faster recovery means increased volume and faster performance improvements. And while better options seem to exist to help with sleep and with pain associated with conditions like gout, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend tart cherry for those purposes. And although higher end supplements can be really expensive at almost $4 a dose, at $1.37 per cup of juice or 9 cents per dose of powdered capsules, I think it's certainly worth a try and I would definitely recommend it. In fact, I might go out and get some this weekend. Thanks for listening.